Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe. We're trying to hit 50,000 subscribers until the end of the year. And let's get going. So, in some Discords, including mine, and some forum pages as well, people started to add that there is one leak that it might be true or maybe not. Probably not. Some people already said it's probably false, but still confirming some aircraft and other stuff that it is not that important. But the main thing is that in that leak, apparently the YAK-41 is leaked. And basically I wanted to make a video talking a little bit about the YAK-41, if it actually can be added, how it would be, and a little bit of its history. But a very short video, about 10 minutes I think. So let's get to it. So the YAK-41, yes, 41, not 141. The 141 number actually came out of some, initially was for some confusion made to be happening in the West, made by the KGB and other basically intelligence ideas, right? And after that, after the Soviet Union collapsed, they actually went to the West and actually advertised it as a YAK-141. So here in the West, it was actually known as the YAK-140, like basically YAK-141, right? But the original Soviet name and the Soviet name that it was supposed to get is YAK-41, okay? It is an aircraft that was meant to substitute the YAK-38, but let's talk a little bit about the history behind it, just a little bit. So, yeah, the Soviets didn't have a proper aircraft carrier, okay? They had these cruisers that they normally used as carriers. They were named like carrier cruiser or something like that, like the Baku class that we have in War Thunder right now. These aircraft carriers / cruisers could deliver a very hefty punch with the cruise missiles and stuff. But obviously, because of the short deck and other minor things like the size of the hull itself and other things, it could only carry VTOL aircraft. And the VTOL aircraft that it carried, it was the YAK-38. Not the most amazing aircraft for fleet defense, and not the greatest aircraft for anti-ship as well. In the 70s and in the 80s, the Soviets actually wanted to make another type of carrier, which later became the Kuznetsov, right? The initial idea was to be on par with the US Navy on that sense. They already had cruisers that were powerful, already had submarines, but the fleet of carriers was pretty limited compared to the US, right? So the objective was to actually be on par on that part. The initial idea was to actually use a navalized version of the MiG-23. And after that, they went, in the 80s, right, they decided to go for the MiG-29K and the Su-27K, which would be navalized versions of the MiG-29 and Su-27. Of course, later, everything became problematic, Soviet Union collapsed, and you know what the history behind that is, right? But with that modernization of the carrier fleet and the new aircraft carriers that they were going to make, the objective was at least 3, but I think initially the projects was to be 5 aircraft carriers, even some nuclear-powered ones. So if the Soviet Union didn't collapse, they probably would force that kind of thing to be worked on. And also, they needed to modernize it, to modernize the old carriers, the old cruisers that they had that were carrying the YAK-38, right? So the YAK-41 is basically the answer to that. While the big carriers would carry the MiG-29 and Su-27, the YAK-41 would be the main aircraft for the smaller carriers. It is a VTOL aircraft that has some problems due to that. Obviously, in the performance side of things, it is an aircraft that it is a lot more limited than a MiG-29 or a Su-27. But in the other senses, it was way better than the YAK-38. I mean, imagine a dogfight against an F-14 as a fleet defense in a YAK-38, or even a fast bomber or anything like that. I mean, the YAK-38 was just very bad at its job in a general sense, right? It was an alright aircraft. It was like the Sea Harrier. But it has its problems. The Sea Harrier has its problems. A lot of these aircraft, the VTOL aircraft, are problematic in the sense of weight, performance, missile-wise, radar, anything like that, right? So with that idea, the YAK-41 was to be better than the YAK-38 in every single way. So what is the YAK-41? Sorry, it is basically the same idea behind it. So as I said, a VTOL aircraft with short wings, very small to be able to be inside a carrier as well, but with everything from the 80s basically. So the radar, for example, it is a radar derivative from the N019, which is the radar on the MiG-29. It has a smaller dish, but still it is a radar that can carry the most modern semi-active and active missiles that the Soviets and Russians had at the time. So the R-27 and R-77, and also for dogfights, it can use the helmet-mounted sight together with the R-60M and especially the R-73. The R-60M was, I mean, of course it could use it, but the idea was to only use the R-73, right? That's why you barely see any information about the R-60M. It was already too old of a missile. It's a 1975 missile, right? But still it could carry, but the objective was to only use R-73s. It was limited on that. He only can carry 4 missiles with these ideas behind it. But the cool part is that it can actually do anti-ship, basically anything, air-to-ground, basically combat, right? So yeah, it is better than the YAK-38 in every single way. It is in the performance, obviously not going to be turning too much. It is an aircraft that has short wings, and even though it has a lot of power, it is limited on that sense, okay? And obviously the extra weight of the extra engines that it has to be able to vertically take off kind of don't help the aircraft, right? The maximum speed was around 1,800, so it is a slower aircraft than the other 4th generation counterparts of it for the other forces. But the rate of climb was 250, around 250 meters per second. So it is a little bit less than the MiG-29 and stuff, but it's still fairly good, right? The engine itself, the main engine, had about 152 kilonewtons in the afterburner. So yeah, very, very powerful engine. It has the Gisha 30-1, which is the normal cannon that the Russians had, the Soviets had in the 80s. And as I said, 4 underwing pylons to be able to carry the missiles that he wanted. So this is the idea of the aircraft. 1 crew. It is kind of a heavy aircraft, but not so much. 11,000 kilograms, 600. So yeah, pretty cool aircraft. But as I said, it isn't the most amazing thing ever. It isn't going to beat anything in a dogfight, okay? I think if at all right now, with this idea in mind that it has less climb rate, so less power, it has less turning capabilities, and obviously it's a little bit heavier because of the engine there, that it doesn't use the central engines in middle flight. It means that this aircraft would not even be 12.0, I think. With the radar that he had, of course, not giving it the R-77. The idea would be just the R-27 and R-60M or the R-73. 2 R-27s, 2 R-73s or 2 R-60Ms. You would be limited, as you see. And the radar, it will have around 40 to 50 kilometers against an F-16. Against an F-14, probably around 60 to 70 kilometers maximum, you know. So it isn't the greatest radar ever as well. Of course, the helmet-mounted sight does help a lot, but it is limited. And even though it is an aircraft that everybody loves, and it is an amazing aircraft, and it was heavily studied by even Lockheed after the Cold War to actually help them learn how to make such an aircraft as a VTOL, that even though it is limited, it would be so fun and great to be added. I think it needs to, not that it needs to be added right now, nothing is needed in the game in the sense of the Russian tech tree, but I think it is just a great addition, right? Any other navalized aircraft such as the MiG-29K and the Su-27K or Su-33, they're all too modern for now. So the YAK-41 would be the coolest thing to be added. It wouldn't be that OP, it would be a very okay and good top tier aircraft or close to top tier, but it isn't going to be OP anyway, so why not add it, right? As I said, it can do even anti-ship and other types of weapon systems that it can carry. It even would be a very good addition to be an air-to-ground weaponry in the top kind of side of things, right? So yeah, very cool aircraft, but as I said, not the greatest thing ever as well, so why not, right? But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about the YAK-41. Do you think it's needed? Do you think it would be a cool addition or not? Do you think it's coming? It is a weird design, and if you look too much into it, you can see some resemblance from the Yak-38, so you see that the design is a little bit older, but still an amazing aircraft that I think it should be added, just like the AV-8B needs to be added for the US as well, right? But anyway, hope you enjoyed. As I said, leave it in the comments if you think that the Yak-41 needs to be added to the game, and I see you guys on the next one. So bye guys, see you.